My family didn't invite me to Christmas because it's no place for losers. My brother Lucas? I calmly agreed and stopped funding his children and his wife, Amanda. Now he's going crazy. I was actually looking forward to Christmas this year. For once, I wasn't scrambling at the last minute to get everything together. By the first week of December, I bought presents for everyone: my parents, my brother Lucas, his wife Amanda, and their kids. I even bought extras just in case anyone brought unexpected guests. I don't know, I just felt like this year was going to be special. So I was completely blindsided when, as I stood on my parents' front porch with bags of wrapped presents in each hand, my mom opened the door and said, "We don't want you here this year." At first, I thought it was some kind of weird joke. I started to laugh a little, but then Lucas's voice cut in from behind her. "This is no place for losers," he said. "You're really starting to wear on all of us." I just stood there staring at her. My dad was in the background, not saying a word, just looking awkwardly everywhere but at me. My mom looked uncomfortable, but didn't back away. And Lucas looked downright smug. I felt this onslaught of emotions: confusion, anger, embarrassment. But somehow I stayed calm. I just nodded, said, "Fine if that's how you feel," and walked back to my car. But as I sat there in the driveway, staring at the bags of presents in the passenger's seat, something inside me changed. No place for losers. Tired of me? Where is this coming from? I had a pretty good idea Lucas was behind it, but I couldn't figure out why. I'd been nothing but generous to him and his family over the years. I'd helped pay for his kids' school supplies, covered their summer camp fees, and even pitched in on his mortgage when things got tight. And now, out of the blue, I'm not welcome at Christmas. I decided I wasn't going to leave just yet. I was going back to the door to get some answers. I left the presents in the car and went back to the door. My parents were still standing there, whispering to each other as if they hadn't expected me back. Lucas was lounging on the couch, scrolling through his phone, acting as if nothing had just happened. I didn't bother to knock. "What's going on?" I asked, stepping inside. "Why am I not welcome at Christmas? What did I do?" Lucas grinned without even looking up from his phone. "You really don't get it, do you? You've been slacking off lately. The kids have barely gotten anything from you this year." I stared at him, stunned. "What are you talking about? I've spent hundreds on presents for your kids. They have more presents in the car than anyone else." Lucas finally looked at me. "Last year you did more. This year, it's like you don't care. It's embarrassing for us, honestly." I turned to my parents, expecting them to say something, maybe defend me or tell Lucas he was out of line. Instead, my mom gave me this awkward smile and said, "But you just bought a new car. You found money for it." For a second, I didn't even know how to respond. "The car is on credit," I said, keeping my voice steady. "And even if it wasn't, how does buying a car suddenly make me responsible for Lucas's kids? They're not my responsibility." "You're the one who makes the most money," Lucas said, leaning back on the couch as if this was all perfectly reasonable. "We're a family. Families help each other. You've always done that." I looked at Amanda, his wife, who was sitting quietly in the corner. She hadn't said a word, but her face was flushed, and she was staring down at her hands. She looked as if she wanted to disappear. "Is that your reasoning?" I asked. "Because I've been generous in the past. I'm now obligated to do so forever? And if I don't, I'm a loser?" Lucas shrugged. "If the shoe fits." That was it for me. I took a step back and shook my head. "You know what? You're right. I don't belong here." I looked at my parents. "Enjoy your Christmas." Then I turned to Lucas and said, "And good luck with those presents, because this loser is done financing your life." I walked out without waiting for an answer. I drove home in silence, gripping the wheel harder than I needed to. I couldn't wrap my head around it. Was I really the bad guy here? I'd gone above and beyond for my family for years, always stepping up when things got tough for Lucas, making sure his kids never felt the pinch of his financial struggles. And now, not only was I not welcome at Christmas, but I was a loser for not doing enough. When I got home, I sat in the driveway for a while, staring at nothing. The bags of presents were still in the car, and the sight of them made me sick to my stomach. I'd spent weeks picking out just the right things, thinking about what the kids would love, what my parents would appreciate, and for what? To be told I didn't belong. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. This wasn't just about Christmas or presents. This had been building for years, and I'd been too blind or maybe too willing to see it. The truth was I'd always been the one Lucas leaned on. Looking back now, I realized that I'd created this dynamic. I made it too easy for Lucas to rely on me. And somewhere along the way, it stopped being gratitude and turned into entitlement. And tonight, being shut out of my own family's Christmas because I didn't do enough, that was the breaking point. The next morning, I woke up with a clearer head and made a decision. I was done. No more bailing Lucas out. No more endless gifts to make up for his lack of effort. If he wanted his kids to have the things I'd provided, he could figure it out for himself. It wasn't an easy decision. Cutting off my brother didn't just mean cutting off financial support. It meant risking my relationship with him, with his children, and maybe even with my parents. But I couldn't go on being treated like an ATM instead of a brother and a son. I didn't reach out to anyone, and they didn't reach out to me. I thought maybe they got the message, but I should have known Lucas wouldn't let it go that easily. The silence stretched through New Year's Eve. No phone calls, no texts. Nothing. For the first time in years, I spent the holidays completely alone. I won't lie, part of me thought about calling, but every time I picked up the phone, I remembered Lucas's smirk, his words. No place for losers. I'd been the one holding things together for years, and they had the audacity to treat me like I was disposable. No, if they wanted distance, I'd give it to them. By mid-January, I began to feel the change. Amanda had always been quiet, the kind of person who avoided conflict. But one night, I got a text from her out of the blue. It was short and to the point. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I don't agree with what happened. Lucas won't hear it from me, but I thought you should know. I sat staring at my phone for a long time, not sure how to respond. On the one hand, it felt good to know that someone in the family saw things for what they were. On the other hand, Amanda had been silent that night, and her apology now felt like too little, too late. I finally replied, I appreciate it, Amanda, but this isn't something I can just move on from now. She didn't push the conversation further, and that was fine with me. Then, in early February, Lucas showed up at my house unannounced. I was in the middle of a work meeting when I heard the knock on the door. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I ignored it at first, but the knocking didn't stop. When I finally opened the door, there he was, Lucas, looking more disheveled and frustrated than I'd ever seen him. We need to talk, he said, stepping inside before I could stop him. I crossed my arms. What's this about? He got right to the point. You need to stop acting like this and start helping out again. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because I couldn't believe he meant it. Helping out? You mean paying for your life? I told you, I'm done with that. He glared at me. You're the one with the money. Do you know how hard it's been for us since you decided to act like this? The kids barely have what they need. Amanda's trying to keep it together, but we can't do it without your help. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Are you listening to yourself right now? You're a grown man. Lucas, you have a wife and children. If you need more money, go out and earn it. It's not my job to solve your problems. You've always helped before. He shot back. Why are you being so selfish now? Selfish. I repeated. You want to talk about being selfish? Let's talk about how you lied to our parents about me, turned them against me, and then banned me from Christmas because I didn't spend enough on your kids. And now you're here asking for more. You got some nerve, Lucas. He started to say something else, but I held up a hand to stop him. We're done here. I'm not giving you another dime, and I don't want to hear from you again until you figure out how to act like an adult. He stood there for a moment, glaring at me, before finally storming out. After Lucas stormed out, I thought that would be the end of it. For a while, he'd maybe complain to my parents, but eventually, he'd figure out I wasn't going to back down. I was wrong. 2 days later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Normally, I wouldn't have answered, but something told me to pick up. Hello? Is this Michael? A man's voice asked. Yeah, who's this? This is Mark Dawson. I'm a lawyer. I represent a client who has recently expressed concern about certain financial matters involving your family. Do you have a moment to discuss them? I froze. A lawyer? What financial matters? I can't go into detail over the phone, he said, his tone overly polite. But it involves financial contributions you've made to your brother Lucas and his family. Specifically, your use of those contributions. Would you be willing to come to my office for a discussion? I didn't know what to say. My mind was racing with possibilities. Had Lucas taken out a loan in my name? Was he using my information for something shady? Or was this a desperate attempt to guilt me into giving him money again? Who's your client? I finally asked. There was a brief pause. I'm afraid I can't disclose that right now, but I assure you this is not a lawsuit against you. It's more of an investigation. Against my better judgment, I agreed to a meeting. Curiosity got the better of me, and I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this than just Lucas being Lucas. When I walked into Mark Dawson's office the next day, I wasn't sure what to expect. But as soon as I sat down, he dropped a bombshell. The client I'm representing is Amanda, he said, pushing a folder across the desk toward me. I blinked, completely taken by surprise. Amanda? Why would she need a lawyer? Mark folded his hands and watched me closely. She believes Lucas has been using the money you've given him over the years inappropriately. She has reason to believe he's been hiding money from her and from you. My stomach turned. Hiding money? What do you mean? He opened the folder, revealing copies of bank statements, receipts, and what looked like screenshots of text messages. She suspects Lucas has been taking your financial contributions and funneling them into a separate account. Based on what she found, he may have been using the money for gambling and other personal expenses instead of supporting his family. I stared at the documents in disbelief. You're saying all those times I helped him with bills, with his kids' school stuff, that money never went to them? Mark nodded solemnly. It seems that way. Amanda discovered this recently and came to me because she didn't know what to do. She didn't want to involve you at first, but given the circumstances, she thought you should know. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Lucas had been playing me all along, taking money I thought was going to help his family and blowing it on who knows what. I didn't know whether to feel angry, betrayed, or just plain stupid for not seeing it sooner. Does Amanda have proof? I asked, my voice tense. Mark nodded and pushed the folder closer to me. Take a look for yourself. I leafed through the documents. There were transfers from my account to Lucas's, matching the times I'd helped him. Emergencies. Then there were withdrawals from his account. Large sums going to a separate account in his name. I saw transactions from that account to online gambling sites, expensive restaurants, and even a few hotel stays. Unbelievable, I muttered, shaking my head. And Amanda knew about this? She only recently discovered the second account, Mark explained. She had suspicions for a while, but she didn't have access to his banking information until she stumbled across some bank statements he'd left out. That's when she contacted me. I sat back, trying to take it all in. Does she want me to do anything? When I left Mark Dawson's office, the weight of Lucas's betrayal was overwhelming. Every piece of evidence presented by the lawyer felt like a stab in the back. He hadn't just abused my generosity. He had intentionally deceived me and Amanda, lying to both of us while squandering the money meant to support his family. I had spent years sacrificing for him, and this was how he repaid me, with lies and ingratitude. As I drove home, anger grew within me. Lucas had always been irresponsible, but this betrayal was beyond anything I could have imagined. The thought of his children, who I thought I was helping, suffering while he wasted money on gambling, luxury dining, and hotels made my blood boil. I decided he needed to face the consequences, not just for what he did to me, but for everything Amanda and the kids had endured because of him. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, the documents spread out before me. Every line was a weapon, every piece of evidence a bullet. If Lucas wanted a war, he'd found the right person to fight. But this wasn't going to be impulsive. It had to be meticulous, calculated, and definitive. First, I scanned and secured all the evidence, storing copies in multiple locations to ensure it couldn't be destroyed. Then I arranged to meet with Amanda. When we met the next day, she looked exhausted, but there was a determination in her eyes I hadn't seen before. Michael, I'm so sorry about all of this, she began, her voice trembling. I didn't know what Lucas was doing. I believe you, I replied, but we need to make a decision. Do you want to stay with him? She hesitated before shaking her head. I can't. He's destroyed the trust we had. There's no going back. That's all I needed to know, I said. Now let's make sure he faces the consequences and understands what he's done. I spent the following weeks meticulously planning every step. With Mark's help, we filed to freeze Lucas's accounts under suspicion of financial misuse. At the same time, Amanda initiated divorce proceedings. We gathered enough evidence to ensure she would get full custody of the children. But I knew Lucas wouldn't take this lying down. It didn't take long for him to show up at my door again, furious. He pounded on the door like a madman, shouting my name. When I opened it, he tried to push his way in, but I raised my hand to stop him. If you take one step inside, I'm calling the police, I said calmly. You're behind this, aren't you? He shouted. You're trying to ruin my life. I'm not trying to ruin anything, Lucas. You did that all on your own, I replied. I just exposed the truth. You think this is over? He yelled. I'll put an end to this, Michael. You'll regret this. Good luck with that, I said, slamming the door in his face. He stood outside yelling for a few more minutes before storming off. I knew that wasn't the end. A few days later, Lucas began a campaign to turn our parents against me. He went to them, crying, claiming I was destroying his life and that Amanda and I were conspiring to leave him with nothing. My mother, always inclined to believe Lucas's stories, called me, demanding an explanation. Michael, how could you do this to your brother? He's suffering so much. You want to know what's happening, Mom? Fine, I said. I'll show you. The next day, I went to their house with all the evidence. I laid it out piece by piece, bank statements, receipts, and proof of his lies. My father stayed silent, but the shame was evident in his eyes. My mother, however, tried to justify it. He was under a lot of pressure. Maybe he made mistakes, but he's your brother. He didn't make mistakes, Mom. He chose to deceive us. He chose to lie to you, to me, to Amanda. He chose to gamble away the money meant for his family. And now he needs to face the consequences. The conversation ended with them visibly shaken. But for the first time, they didn't try to defend Lucas. Meanwhile, Amanda was gaining strength. With Lucas's accounts frozen and the evidence stacked against him, she secured full custody of the kids and control of their home. Lucas, on the other hand, was crumbling. The debts he had hidden began to surface, and creditors were unwilling to wait. He lost access to his accounts, and his reputation was in shambles. But it still wasn't enough. I needed Lucas to fully understand what it meant to manipulate and betray someone who had only ever tried to help him. So, I exposed his actions to our close friends and relatives, not out of petty revenge, but to ensure the truth was known. Lucas tried to confront me in public, but this time, I was ready. "You have the nerve to face me after everything you've done?" I asked. "After stealing from your own family, lying to all of us? What did you think would happen, Lucas? That I'd keep funding your lies?" He had no response. The people around us began to see him for who he truly was, and the network of support he had relied on for years began to crumble. Amanda, on the other hand, was rebuilding her life. She secured a stable job, enrolled her kids in a good school, and finally found peace. As for me, I learned to protect my generosity. Never again would I allow anyone to take advantage of my kindness. Lucas was left alone to face the consequences of his choices. He tried to rebuild, but with mounting debts and a ruined reputation, he became isolated, with no one to turn to. And while I finally found freedom and peace, Lucas learned, the hard way, that some betrayals come with a heavy price.